Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Simply Mike channel. The last couple of weeks we've been talking about conflict resolution, on how not to let the sun set on your anger, and that communication, that eye-to-eye contact, that reconnaissance that's got to take place when dealing with tough issues. Well, hopefully we can take those two pieces of the puzzle and add one final piece. This week I'd like to talk about some of the nuts and the bolts, the X's and O's and the do's and don'ts behind resolving a conflict. Now, I'm not a real big statistics guy, but John Gottman, who's a marriage researcher and marriage educator, says that in order for marriages to be successful, or relationships, there needs to be 5 positive interactions to 1 negative interaction. Now, I found that kind of amazing because that's something that I got to keep in the back of my head when I begin my resolving of conflicts around the house, especially with my wife. But let's take it back to the beginning. So what's got to happen before we start resolving an issue? We need to be calm. Sometimes this might involve walking out of the room for a minute, going for a walk. Just take it maybe a couple of hours. That's okay. But as long as the both come back and tackle that issue that's got to be talked about, okay? So some of the things that you don't want to do in a conflict, you don't want to win. Now, when you win, that's a recipe for disaster because it's not about winning. It's about compromising. Another thing you don't want to do is you don't want to interrupt. You don't want to generalize. You don't want to give silent treatments. You don't want to walk away. You don't want to embarrass your spouse. You don't want to use accusatory words like you. You don't want to use words like never, must, always. You don't want to do these kinds of things. What you do want to do, though, is you want to sit down and you want to calmly identify the issues that are at hand. And once you've identified those issues, you want to brainstorm what's going on. Brainstorm those ideas. Once you've brainstormed, evaluate your options and your ideas. See what kind of conclusion you can come to. And when doing all of this, use the word I, because I expresses that you care about what you're talking about, that it's not about everybody, but it's what you really, really and truly think. That's important. Now, when we get to the end of the conflict, or hopefully at this point there's no conflict and toasters and forks and knives and hammers and whatever, axes aren't being thrown around the house, we've come to the point where maybe we should give a hug. And I know that sounds kind of hokey, but I'll tell you what, I got into a heated argument with my wife one morning, and quite frankly, I can't even tell you what it was about, but it was heated. And I didn't want her going off to work, and I didn't want to start my day that way, so I forced myself, and it felt forced. I went over there, and I gave her a hug and just told her I loved her. And it helped make the situation go by a lot easier during the day. And what does that do? That also teaches us forgiveness, because Christ tells us to forgive others as he's forgiven us. So I'm hoping that these episodes are helping you. And be sure to subscribe to my channel, Simply Mike. I'd love to hear comments. And until next time, peace.